not like E-Trade.
True. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. That would not be fun if I opened up Coinbase and all my Bitcoin was gone. Rolland market mashup, guys. November 24th. Good morning. Bitcoin over 19,000. Market continues to push higher. All sectors are higher this morning. A lot of news in the last 24 hours. We were just talking about it this morning. It looks like Trump's allowing Biden to have part of the transition team. Doesn't mean he necessarily conceded, but it seems like that's a big thing for stocks. Janet Yellen going to be the nominee. Another big thing for stocks. And obviously, we got all these vaccine headlines coming out one after the next.
Seems like a great time to take some profits. The world's just peachy.
Yeah, it feels like kind of a melt up, but like Dad and I were kind of saying this morning, there's definitely been a handful of the favorite stocks over the last few months that have just been complete neutral duds. Like you look at Microsoft, it's nowhere near its all-time highs. You look at Apple, you look at Google, Facebook. So it's interesting. Obviously,
you gotta think that's healthy for the new year. With the way those ran up during the pandemic, this was needed. That they didn't scream higher, that would scare me. Like I think if anything, that's good for setting up for a new year push. Like we talked about last night, there's bound to be a little hiccup here before end of the year rally,
which we have yet to see. And the one stock that was part of that group that was going way higher, that kind of looks like they're continuing their bull rally, is Tesla. They obviously got that upgrade from Wedbush yesterday, which was after they had already made a push to all-time highs last week. They closed over 500 for the first time since they did their split yesterday. And now their stock's at 545 this morning. And they're just pulling the rest of the electric vehicle space right along with them. You look at all the names we talk about on this show all the time, and they're all up way more than 1%. They're up like 5 to 20% almost every single day. It's ridiculous. The NIOs of the world, the Candies of the world, the Rides of the world, like Dad you said yesterday, it's literally a horse race. Mike, what was the ticker yesterday you were talking about? The electric
CIIG. My buddy actually told me to look them up.
So that's a penny stock.
No. It's
CIIG.
Yeah. Hold on, I think that's what it is.
I feel like it might be something else, but yeah, and you even got, Dad, I know we were talking a little bit about this morning because you bought and sold a bunch of ACB, which is Aurora Cannabis. The cannabis stocks are going crazy this morning because, the transition, which is crazy because they've already been going crazy from the fact that Biden's
I'm sorry.
in office.
CIIC.
I want to be the guy who sits there in the morning and says, okay, this is the reason the market's up or down. And they come up with these imbecilic, that's a word, reasons. Like ACB was up because Trump's doing the transition. I mean, it's insane, but that's what they say.
Unless you talk to Trump. So he calls that fake news.
Yeah.
About that whole thing last night. That's why that whole thing is funny. But Dan, it's CIIC. Not
CIIC.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about this market is any sell you make is going to feel like you sold it too early. But I think you'll look back on some of them in the next day or so and feel really good about any sell that you make.
I agree. I feel like you could have it. What, Dan?
That stock's up 25% this morning.
I knew, my buddy was like, get on this before tomorrow, buddy. And, I hadn't bought it yet, but maybe that's something to stir around the pot a little for a day trade. Because it was up
one of the things to add to what Dad just said, that, the chartist that I talked to you guys about that I always follow, he always talks about how, every time the market gaps up or gaps down, doesn't matter which direction, eventually, based on the mechanics of how charts work, they eventually get filled. And his whole thing is every gap you have open eventually gets filled. And right now, it's just one gap up after the next, after the next, after the next. And like Dad just said, you can miss out on 40 to 50% of the rally, but that can get shaved off in literally the matter of hours with some of these names, with how high they've come, I feel like. I don't know
Well,
what
yeah, I
would
think we have
cause
to
it.
keep in mind, like all of our experience the last few years, when things are going great, it goes down way faster than a few great weeks, and then you could have a bad day or two, and it's back to where it was. So that's where everyone has to be careful. That we could easily just have a flush out, whether it's in the next couple of days or maybe next week or right after Thanksgiving, and then just don't when things seem too easy, they are.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the volumes this morning, which are pretty heavy considering we're at a Thanksgiving week.
Because
And
everyone's sitting
every
around with
stock on my
FOMO.
list is up, 6% or more in the heavy volume. Usually there's one or two that are down. And, there's really almost everything is up.
You
When it
have
comes
Uncle
to
Jack sitting around pumped for turkey and just going ham on anything. He's like, "Oh, great! What else can we buy here?" And that's the thing. Like, even look at MMEDF again up big today. These pet that
Yeah.
let that keep running. I'll retire.
It's tough to find. It's tough to find a stock that's not up nice today. I mean, you got Boeing at 218, which is unbelievable considering it fell to under 200 what felt like 2 days ago, but I think that was last
Right.
week. And then
And on
obviously,
that, Danny, GE is the one way to play Boeing if you don't want to put up that kind of money. And GE's kept up. It's up a good 10% in the last 2 days.
But do you guys
Okay.
see those stocks on a pullback here, like coming down a decent amount? Like I'm not in either right now. I got out of Boeing at 222. Right.
well, the one thing I was talking to Dad about just before we started here when you were in the room is it's interesting that two things. One, like the really big mega cap tech stocks that were really the ones crushing it during the beginning of the pandemic haven't really done anything in the last month and a half. Like Microsoft's been treading neutral, Google's been treading neutral. I haven't really been following Facebook as much, but Apple, these like really, really big stocks that have been the real winners have definitely been taking a break. And with that being said, you haven't had the S&P futures or the NASDAQ futures get to new all-time highs, even with all this great news that's been coming out with the vaccine, with the transition, with Janet Yellen. So I don't know if that's a positive concern. You could almost use that as something that's going to fuel the bull run even more, or something that'll trigger the bear runs that if you really dig underneath the surface, some of the best companies aren't doing anything here. And it's these low cap companies that, some of them at least, are companies that don't necessarily have the most legitimate stories to justify what's going on in the stock. So I don't know if that, Dad, I don't know what you think when you look at that, or if it's just completely irrelevant and just how it is right now.
Well, I've used this opportunity to cover the options I've had in Apple. I still have some, but I'm going to end up long Apple in a big way by the end of the month, because I don't want to have the capital gain this year now, because I'm pretty sure the Senate's going to split and there won't be a tax increase, at least on capital gains. So I think Apple and Microsoft will probably be seeing money going back in them when the rest of the market sells off, possibly. So that's something to think about.
I think it's almost like you see this is healthy in the fact that there were a bunch of stocks that when the tech ran up during the pandemic and those stay-at-home stocks, we kept talking about, okay, the NASDAQ's up, and everything else wasn't. And now you've seen the Dow play catch up. I think what's happening, though, you also have a bubble that's forming with these FOMO names, which I think should be its own category with these EV stocks. And you just have certain names that I think people are just thinking, oh, I can make a quick, really big buck here. And that's when things get dangerous. So I almost think we're going to see there being a healthy pullback with certain stocks, but not, we're definitely setting up, in my opinion, for a great run after the new year with the way this is balanced out. Dan, I think you're dead on with that. It's just about making sure you don't get trapped in these fluff names that are clearly not even going to do much.
And some of them aren't even necessarily fluff, but like we talk about the RSI a lot. If you look at the small cap index individually and separate it out, the RSI is at 74. And that's a lot of these names that just every single day up. So it wouldn't be crazy, like Dad just said, if you see the Dave and Buster's of the world get wrecked one day, along with some of these electric vehicle companies, not maybe Tesla, but no, I would put Tesla in that category just because of the run they've gone on, but the small cap ones. And then, like Dad just said, you see the Apples and the Googles retake the lead in the rally. And I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but I guess there is a situation where you could see the market come down in sectors, but not as a whole, which is almost what's been happening. It's,
which is healthy, because the way it ran up early in the pandemic, it was just like the NASDAQ was the whole market running everything. So,
yeah, and in two sectors that were so underowned by institutions have been the energy sector and finance. And those two areas have been explosive. Forget the speculative stuff that's in the horse races. Real money is going into these names now because they're underowned. And that by the end of the fourth quarter, I think portfolio managers want to show that they have a reasonable holding in energy and finance.
So, Dad, do you think it's a good point if you don't, like, I'm right now not in any energy or bank stocks. Do you think right now, I saw Kramer said, Goldman reached its all-time high yesterday. Do you think some of these stocks, it's good entry points with that notion of institutional money pivoting to make sure they showcase that?
Well, but first of all, I think Goldman is still 20 points away from an all-time high. But, these stocks have run up in the last few days quite a bit. So there may be a better entry point, but I do think that's where a lot of the money's been going. I don't know if I'd buy it today. It's hard to buy anything today after these kind of moves unless they haven't moved.
I was telling Dad a pretty good strategy has been playing, if you're trading on the short end, like day trades or whatnot. And Mike, I know you like to trade on the long side, not the short side. If you look for names that are at their 52-week highs, and a lot of the time, once they're at their 52-week highs, it turns into either a 2 to 4 day little journey of them really ripping through the highs. Because what happens is when a stock hits all-time highs, there's no more sellers that got stuck in the name. I mean, obviously there's going to be sellers taking profits, but it's a lot easier for a stock to just start ripping out of control when there's not previous levels of resistance where people are trying to get out. So, like, if you look at what's been going on with Tesla, or if you look at what's been going on with Square is a good one. That's the one I've been kind of doing pretty hard the last 3 days, where thing hit all-time highs. And if you watch it each day, there's continued volume spikes that are just sending it to all-time highs day after day after day. Now's day 4, so maybe today you get a little bit of a pullback, but that's definitely been an interesting strategy. And I know you're on E-Trade. You could actually set up a strategy scanner on E-Trade where it'll shoot out any name that's hitting its 52-week high, like as it's happening. So you're just getting fed names that are hitting their all-time highs, and you can kind of look at them and see, and then you see Squares on there, and you're like, oh, hell yeah, because a lot of the times it's names you never recognize. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. I think we talked about that a couple months ago on this show.
What we talked about a couple months ago for the day trade was with GameStop specifically, when it was going through that craziness. And it's the same thing in like a day, where even if you look at your CIIG or whatever that stock was, that's up 25% this morning. And I haven't looked at the chart, but like it works a lot even in the same day. Like yesterday, you could have basically bought and sold Tesla 15 times throughout the day, where your buy orders are slightly above the previous high that it hit an hour ago. And that way you're not buying until it breaks through its previous high that it hit like previously in the day, and you have your order ready. So if it ends up not actually breaking through, your order doesn't get triggered. So if it's like a double top, you're not buying, because that's not what you want. You don't want a double top. It's going to reverse and be nasty. But these stocks, like, and that's where it's kind of like, all right, how do you handle the risk right now in terms of like, how do you take advantage of what's going on in the market without feeling like you're being irresponsible? Why not just not go overnight with any of these stupid name positions and play in these quick scalp trades? If these stocks are going to go up 25 to 45% in a day, great. could get 30 fills on it in one day. And you know what I mean? No reason to hold your name overnight at all.
Yeah, and one of the hardest things to always do is if you buy a stock and sell it, it's difficult mentally to go back in when the stock is higher. But sometimes that's the best trade you can do. So you really have to change the way you think when the market's just going in one direction.
I used to
day trading.
Yeah, when I first started day trading, I used to try and like be right more than just listen to what the market was doing. And that doesn't make any sense. Like if you see like a Tesla going up huge and you think like, oh, this is ridiculous, I'm going to short it, this isn't going to last. No, it is going to last. If you see millions and millions of volume coming in and a stock's going through the moon, yeah, there's the times where it reverses, but like more often than not, it's going to continue, and you might as well not fight that trend. You could definitely try and fight the trend and like prove to be right, and then just get burned by the millions and millions of people trying to eat up these shares, which is why Elon Musk made shorts for people that lost a lot of money trying to short Tesla. That's like exactly what happens. Well, you could look at Tesla's chart and make sense of shorting it almost every minute of the day, thinking, oh, this is it, can't go higher. Like I'm sure there were people that thought that at 500, now it's at 545. And then like they're like 510 when we try it again. And Dad, you could probably speak about this, but that's probably what causes a stock like that to go so much higher, is you get so many people that are like, let me catch this thing on the way down. So let me try and short it right here. Nope, I'm wrong. All right, let me cover. Let me try it again here. Nope, I'm wrong. Let me cover. And eventually they're just like, all right, I'm done with this. And then you just kind of run out of buyers. You know what I mean?
Betting against winners is never a good idea. Like I think there's certain stocks that just, if you're trying to time to short a winner, it's just difficult. Like there's certain companies like a Tesla. You guys know I don't even want to short a stock, but if I did, that would be the last one on the list.
Yeah, I tried shorting Tesla last week and got run over by a train in a matter of like minutes. And that's
how Elon texted you.
Like, what?
I'm sure Elon asked for your address. He'll be sending you some shorts.
It would be funny if he got like a document that showed every person that shorts Tesla, so he's able to just
Folio have them set up with the notification every time someone shorts them.
And then the other thing, Dad, and I don't know if the big funds are also light on retail. They probably should be if they are, but retail's been coming in this quarter. And obviously the expectations were so low that they've all been kind of surprising to the upside. Like this morning, I saw there was a lot of companies that were on the retail side that reported good earnings, like Best Buy. They had a good quarter. They're up this morning. Dick's had a good quarter. They're up this morning. I think I saw Tiffany's had a good quarter with explosive growth in China, which is the same thing that happened last quarter, so that's not surprising. Dollar Trade, these retail, even Abercrombie and Fitch. So, and this isn't surprising because these stocks were starting to get priced as if they weren't going to survive. So all it just takes is like a little bit of upside and people want to get in.
And how about McCormick? You see they're buying hot sauce maker Cholula for $800 million.
Wow.
Why aren't we in the spice company?
Yeah, that's one of those stocks that just goes up and away every single year. If you look back like at a weekly chart, it's one of the great stocks.
We never talked about that.
No. It's
so
really
what's going on there? Is that something I should be anchoring?
Well, that's a good stock to just have in a portfolio. It's not one to day trade, but it always will do well because people like spices and there's always more people.
Except me, who almost died from eating cayenne last week. What's going on, Ed Jarvis? What's up, Cookie? Was just listening to our podcast you were on last week. The best.
So I just want to add something. What's up, Ed? But Mike, to add to what you had reported about a week ago about Palantir and how the main guy, what was it, George Soros, that came out. So what happened was, I read up on that, and he basically said that he's got a moral dilemma with the way Palantir captures everybody's data. And he's like, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to be an investor in this company anymore. So he did put out a notice saying as soon as he's legally able to, he's going to sell the shares because of moral hazard.
Yeah.
So that made me like Palantir even more. It tells me that they're doing some shady shit. And
they're doing a ton of shady shit. I mean, Peter Thiel is the king of seeing so ahead that it's morally imbalanced, to say the least, but very smart guy. And, well, I am wishing I didn't sell that last week.
Well, you say that, but there are people in Silicon Valley that get into different people and think that it's always a good investment. I think of Elizabeth Holmes, who was on trial from her drug
Dad,
company,
that's not
and
Peter
everybody
Thiel,
got involved.
Elizabeth
What's up?
Holmes didn't have PayPal in her back pocket. Let's be real. Peter Thiel is very credible. That's not a guy. I think he was part of
No,
the
I'm
reason.
not saying that. I'm saying that it's not always clear cut on the people that invest in these things. It helps, but it's
But
not
certain
always.
people, have like stellar reputations. When you see their name attached, it's like, oh man, I have FOMO not being involved in the guy that's doing anything to never die. Like, when you think of Peter Thiel, you think of Iron Man, kind of like Elon Musk, the way those guys think. So
Yeah.
I do
Well,
like
Peter
Thiel.
Thiel's involved in that compass, which really hasn't moved yet.
Speaking of Peter Thiel and Elizabeth Holmes, we might as well bring up Nikola for a second, because Trevor Milton kind of falls into that category, at least Elizabeth Holmes. That stock's been on a rocket, up over 8% this morning, trading over $31 now. I think the fact that GM hasn't walked away from that deal is keeping people just, I guess, assuming that company's legit. Either that or GM is trying to save a major embarrassing moment by just admitting what the rest of the world might already know. But Nikola has been recovering nicely since the Trevor Milton incident happened.
I think it's because of the Biden administration when you think about it. And GM came out this morning trying to play nice with Biden about the California emissions thing. You have to just think that Nikola run-up has been kind of coinciding since Biden, quote unquote, won the election. So I wonder if those two correlate.
Could be. And then,
I want to know about Zoom.
What's up, Mike?
Ed brought up Zoom. What's your guys' thoughts there? I mean, I've never even owned this stock. My buddy keeps giving me shit for not being in it this last 9 months. I just hate it. It doesn't work for me every time I'm on Zoom.
I mean, every time we talk about Zoom, we think about one thing, that it's too high, and that
I think
Tesla.
Yeah, I think 588.84 was maybe the highest point that stock will ever reach. What I think is going to happen is there's going to be a quarter where the world sees Microsoft is actually eating their lunch in the corporate world with Microsoft Teams. They're starting to win over all the partnerships in the major leagues for, being able to sit, like, with being a virtual fan. I know there's like some major corporations that are switching over to Microsoft Teams. That's what scares me about Zoom, is I think Microsoft Teams is the winner there.
Yeah, I would not touch Zoom. When I load it up, I feel like someone's hacking into my computer from Russia.
Fiverr over 200 this morning.
What is?
Man. Fiverr.
Wow.
I think Fiverr closed at 200 yesterday because it's up $2.
We were talking about that yesterday. We owned that back when it was at $20 in February. That's one stock I can't believe I got out of.
See, this is a stock that kind of plays into what I was saying with the 52-week high thing. The only reason it doesn't is because I personally only like doing that on stocks that trade on high volume, because Fiverr, it just doesn't. So you don't get, it's different. But Fiverr, they're in no man's land now. When you're in no man's land, that can continue for a while.
Yeah. And how about Uber? We talked about that last night. They're over $50 now. Seems like they've been trending better, obviously, with this vaccine talk and, how well they're doing with delivery, with food, with Uber Eats. So clearly,
I told myself a couple weeks ago when Uber closed over 50, I would add more to Uber. It's just like when you look at this chart, I mean,
I'll add more to Uber when the market has a correction. It's tough to make, I'm long a decent amount of Uber right now. Pumped with
I don't know that much. All I know is when it kind of, like, it seems like it's been consolidating pretty nicely in this, like, 49 range. And I kind of think it's going to break out from here. Dad, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a nice chart. I think it's one of the more talked about companies. So I don't think anyone says, "Oh, I got a new company for you." It's Uber.
Yeah, I also think the Zillow chart's getting really interesting again. I mean, I've been just keeping my position, but it's about $2 away from its previous highs. And again, like this chart looks like it's about to explode through its previous highs. So you look at 120.25, I believe, is the top.
Yeah, that stock looks up. I like that story better than Uber because I just feel like the mainstream doesn't really know about it yet.
I know Zillow is so under the radar. It's awesome. I think I'm long a decent amount, but I want to be long way more, like aggressively, because it's just obvious the next few years what's going on with them. It's hard to back.
Crazy that like the retailers aren't all over this name because they love Zillow, and I don't get how this stock isn't like a loved stock in the world of like Robinhood.
It will be though, Dan. Justin Pulford wants to know Bitcoin reaching all-time highs. How do you think this will go? Thinking about taking a profit. I mean, Justin, I'll tell you right now how I know it's going to go is way up. Right. You can't be, there's nothing wrong with a bit of a profit. Just realize you're going to be paying 40% taxes. Like I just transferred my Bitcoin, and while doing that, I naturally am going to owe some taxes now. From getting out of Coinbase. And with that, make sure you have it secure because our father here, Bob, got me on board with
our father. It sounds like a
either way, Bitcoin. I recently put it in GBTC thanks to Bob over here, and it's a Bitcoin trust you could buy on any trading platforms. Be careful with the third parties with security. It's hard, the what ifs. But I think there's no harm in taking a little profit. Just don't be selling all your Bitcoin.
Let me and to add to that, look, the bullish case that the institutional people are saying about Bitcoin, which I guess makes sense, is once it becomes a $1 trillion asset class, which means it'll, I think, be at 40,000, then you'll have the institutional players that'll essentially need to make it a part of their portfolio, like they have gold. And whether or not this is true, this is what a lot of like the big bulls of Bitcoin think, which will then send it from 40,000 to 100,000. So the people that are bullish on Bitcoin basically look at it like it's half to where it needs to be before institutional investors almost need to have it in their portfolios just to be diverse. And that's where you want Bitcoin to get for it to like take on a whole new life.
I personally would not get out of Bitcoin right now just because it's reaching all-time highs. I would just buckle up and relax and enjoy the ride because you're going to be making a lot of money. It's probably going to 10x during Bitcoin. What's up?
Everyone's going to be watching for it when it breaks through the high from a few years ago, and if it does, and everyone will jump on the bandwagon right after that. And I think that's when you want to get out of it for a short-term trade way down.
You might get a blow off top. The interesting data point I saw was that what makes this so much different from, I think it was 2016 when it had its last run, is the last run was fueled by small retail investors, and this run apparently is fueled by institutional investors. And that, to me, gives it a little bit more hope for a way bigger run, because if you can get the retailers starting to feel like they missed out and then they pile in, then you get the blowout top. And, so.
And another note to shift gears here, I see Kramer just initiate a position in Ford, which we all own. It's trading well over $9 now. Wondering.
He just initiated that position? Where was he $3.50 ago?
What's that?
Where was he when Bob called that out?
I don't know, but he's been late to the game on this one. But do you guys see this now, like with how it's acting, surpass it, going up towards 10 and just turning
all this electric car stuff eventually has to rub off on Ford and GM in a very positive way.
Right? When shit hits the fan with these EVs, you have to think a lot of people are going to be running into F.
They also announced that they're doing their own electric vehicle department. So, like, when you really think about which companies are actually positioned to make a splash, like a legit one,
yes,
yeah,
we saw that at that delivery convention. What they're doing down in Florida a couple of years ago, I
That
mean,
did
well,
not
no, it
excite
just shows
me.
they've been set up for years and they have the resources. When you think about it, it's not like this is some hype. They have
Yeah.
been knowing what's been
Listen,
coming.
this has been a pro Ford show. We've been talking about Ford since it was in the mid sixes. I actually sold a tiny bit at 896 yesterday, but I own a lot. I still own it, and it's going way higher. But the question really is the market going to have one of these 8-10% corrections before year ends, where guys like Kramer just throw your money at everything? That just seems irresponsible right now. And guys, with that said, that's the end of the show. And we will take this time to say that we're not going to be doing this the rest of the week because we're going to enjoy this holiday time as a family. So this will be our last show for this week. So we'll see everybody next Monday. We hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Rolland Market Mashup. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe. And let's hope for another insane rally in the stock market today, guys.
And let's get in a pumpkin pie eating contest with Ed Cookie Jarvis. Maybe we can get that going for a charity or something.
Let's do it. Boom.